The Puck Portfolio with Andy McNeil.
Hey, welcome to the Puck Portfolio. It is Wednesday, January 29th. Small slate tonight in the NHL after a busy Tuesday. And speaking of Tuesday, I just want to ask your opinion on this, Nick. What did you think of that Mark Stone play in the Dallas game? I know you had a little bit of a different perspective than I did. I thought it was a pretty dirty play, as did you, but I think you're giving him the benefit of the doubt because of Rupe Hintz tripping him right before lunging into Miro Heiskanen's knee.
Yeah, hot take. I don't really have a hot take on the play. I think probably, or I shouldn't say probably, if Heiskanen doesn't get hurt, we're never watching the play over twice. I think there's some angles that kind of made it look like Hintz stick made Stone toe pick and lose control a little bit, and then he ends up taking out Heiskanen's knee. So I didn't really have a firm opinion one way or another. I'll be pretty shocked if the league does give supplemental discipline, just because it's kind of a weird play. I think it's hard to say for sure that Stone was doing anything overly dirty or trying to lead to an injury. So I'd be pretty shocked if we saw that. Yeah, I know there's some Stone haters out there, especially when you see a player like Heiskanen go down that are really getting on him. But I kind of felt like it was hard to tell one way or another who was really at fault.
Yeah, and speaking of Tuesday, the Boston Bruins, what a pathetic showing in Buffalo yesterday. Hat tricks for Tage Thompson and JJ Peterka. The Bruins lose in a blowout. So unfortunately, Mason Lohrei did get a goal in that game, but it wasn't on the power play. It was at even strength. He did not get
He was the only one who looked
point.
good.
Yeah.
I watched the first. He was absolutely buzzing. I was like, oh, it sucks. You kind of took the wrong prop there. But yeah, and it also sucks because we talked about how I'd faded the Bruins last two games, how they looked terrible, but couldn't pull the trigger when they were playing the Sabres. And then sure enough, they kind of got what was coming to them.
Yeah, and Connor Hellebuck coming up big once again. Winnipeg defeating the Montreal Canadiens 4-1. So that saved me quite a bit last night with Pasternak not registering a point, definitely not registering two, and Lohrei prop going under as well. But we're back here on Wednesday, 5 games in the NHL. Let's start with the Wild and Toronto. I have a player prop in this game. I know you're covering this game over at theleafsnation.com. The Wild and Maple Leafs going to be both well rested heading into this one. Minnesota coming off a 2-day break, while Toronto coming off a 3-day break. The Maple Leafs are 19-10 at home this season, and the Wild are 18-5-3 on the road. But unfortunately for the Wild, they're going to be without top star Kirill Kaprizov, who is set to have surgery to repair a lower body injury that caused him to miss 12 games this season. He's going to be sidelined for the next month, according to reports. And the team is also going to be without defenseman Jonas Brodin, who was placed on long-term injured reserve. He isn't expected to be back until the team returns from this 4-game road trip. They kicked off the road trip with a 4-2 win over the Chicago Blackhawks on Monday, but they've lost 6 of their last 9 games, and they were much healthier the last time they defeated the Maple Leafs earlier this season, 2-1 in overtime back on November 3rd. These two teams, Nick, grade out pretty similarly when we're talking about, expected goals, but Toronto does a much better job of controlling the shots, and I think that's probably going to factor into your pick here tonight and mine. So I'll let you kind of take it away here. But how are you handicapping this game? And then I'll get to my player prop when you're done.
Yeah, I like your prop. I was kind of tempted to just go with yours and Matthews to score and call it a day, because I feel like one of them will hit and you'd be all right. As long as one did, you'd obviously do really well if both did. But I like the Leafs to win this game. I think it's a pretty good number. And we've seen the Wild have fallen off very badly, obviously based largely around the injuries. But it does seem like it's coming down a little more to, as GM Bill Guerin had noted, the team, he's kind of not satisfied with their effort. I think a lot of guys' play has kind of also fallen off more than just the injuries. So I really think the Wild have kind of looked quite disappointing. I thought they played the Flames pretty badly on Saturday. They bounced back with the win versus Chicago, but I feel like more or less it's not been great. You look at the last 10 games, they're below 50% in most metrics. And I think the offensive upside of the team right now is just not very good at all. You look at the top line, I think, can continue to fare pretty well. The Boldy, Ek, Zuccarello duo. But beyond that, I think the bottom three lines look pretty concerning. And I feel like the Leafs should be able to hard match their top line against the Boldy line and fare pretty well here. So I actually kind of thought Toronto deserved to be more favored. I haven't been on the Leafs very much over the last 2 months at all. I've kind of thought they've been borderline fraudulent, but at minus 165, I actually thought they were not getting too much credit. So I kind of like the Leafs here. I think it's a good spot. They're well rested. We've seen them cut off win streaks before they get too deep this season and most of the whole core four era. So yeah, I feel like it is a pretty good spot for them. I still like their offensive upside a lot compared to what the Wild currently have. So yeah, and it just seems like the Wild too. Like you look at what's gone on, and it feels like it's going a little deeper than the bodies that are out of the lineup. And I also wonder if maybe Faber and Spurgeon are not completely healthy and they're still playing through something, because I don't think they've been nearly as dominant as they were prior to their injuries, at least not in the short sample games they've been back thus far. So yeah, it feels like the Wild are really just trying to get to this Four Nations break and then hopefully get healthy and get things moving in the right direction.
Yeah, the injuries are also a bit of a concern for the Maple Leafs here tonight, as John Tavares, Matthew Nyes, Max Pacioretty, a couple of other players are on the shelf right now. So I think that's going to put a lot more pressure on, like you said, Matthews to continue his hot streak. Although he didn't score in the last game, he's been red hot as of late. And Willy Nylander is the player that I'm zeroing in on here. Minnesota ranks among the bottom 5 teams in shots against per 60 minutes over the last month. And Nylander has registered 4 or more shots in 5 out of his last 8 outings, including 24 shots on goal in the last 5 games. You can get him at plus 105, maybe plus 110 at some sports books. But I like it at, even money or better. Willy Nylander to go over 3.5 shots on goal tonight. So that's my prop for this one. And you're on the Leafs to win, just straight up on the money line or in regulation, was it?
Yeah, I would personally play it straight up at minus 165. You know that we're both kind of in the same boat here. Typically, that is actually the better play. Yeah. But definitely comparable EV to just play the Leafs to win in regulation at even money. So I think you can kind of do it however you please there if you are interested in backing it. I know some people don't want to lay minus 165 as a single bet.
Right on. Well, there is some news coming out of the NHL today. Drew Doughty going to make his season debut for the Los Angeles Kings tonight after missing the entire season. So this is going to be a big boost for the Kings. But it looks like Kevin Fiala will be a game time decision due to an illness. And also, we learned that Nico Hischier is going to be out week to week now. He was originally considered day to day after missing Monday's game against the Flyers, that 4-2 loss. And Philly, they have a chance to go up 3-0 in the season series versus New Jersey after defeating the Devils twice in the last 2 weeks. The Flyers are 7-5-1 against the Devils since the start of the 21-22 season. They've won their last 3 in a row and 4 out of the last 5 games against New Jersey. They defeated the Devils 3-1 in New Jersey on January 18th and 4-2 on Monday, as I mentioned. But not only did the Flyers win both of those games, they dominated. And you pointed out yesterday that this was a pretty generous price on Philadelphia. And once I looked into things, I tended to agree with that because, Philly controlled 87% of the expected goals at even strength and 56% of the shots in the first meeting. Then in the second meeting, they controlled 65% of the expected goals and 57% of the shots at even strength. So really, really strong performances from the Flyers. And it seems like the Devils have a real problem with this team. You mentioned that Jack Hughes was not at 100%, and that seems to be the case based on reports. And of course, they are without starting goaltender Jacob Markstrom, and Jake Allen has already lost 2 games against this Flyers team already here. So a lot, kind of going in the Flyers' favor for this one. But yeah, speaking of expected goals, the Flyers actually own the league's best even strength expected goal share since November 6th, and only 4 teams have controlled a higher percentage of the shots. So like you said yesterday, they are a much better team than their record indicates. And obviously, goaltending has really held this team back this season. They've still got the worst on-ice save percentage in the NHL. But Samuel Ersson, who I'm hoping will start tonight, I don't know if we've gotten confirmation on that yet. I don't believe we have, but he's been really good after a slow start to the season. He went 6-5-2 in his first 15 games, 3.03 goals against average, and what was it, an 887 save percentage? I had it somewhere, but I'm missing or I'm losing myself in my notes here. But since December 21st, he's gone 9-3-1, 904 save percentage, 2.45 goals against average. And the Flyers rank among the top 10 teams in goals against per 60 minutes since December 27th. And we talked a little bit about it yesterday, but the Devils have really dropped off over the last little bit. On the season, obviously, the Devils have been really good. They rank 4th in even strength expected goals percentage, 6th in shot attempt percentage, but over the last month, they ranked 15th in both of those categories. So they've been pretty mediocre. And with the injuries piling up, I think the Flyers are a great bet today. You can still get them out there at what? Let's see here. Yeah, some sports books still have the Flyers at plus 155, plus 159 at Pinnacle right now. They were around plus 165, but once we learned that Heischer is in fact going to miss this game and probably a couple more, he's obviously a big part of this Devils team, and the odds have started to reflect that. But I still think there's some value on the Flyers, and I'm sure you agree as well.
Yeah, I do. And I feel like you broke it down pretty well. And like really, I think the only thing that gives the Devils their current advantage in this matchup should be goaltending. That's typically the main reason why they'd have a big edge over Philly. But Allen wasn't great the other night. He's been pretty good this season, so I don't know if I'd count on that. But if you're going to say the goaltending matchups, even remotely close here, I think it's a pretty great number because I feel like the game will be pretty even. And honestly, I thought the Devils would be a lot better than they have been this season. I was really high on them, but their lack of depth scoring has been a huge concern recently. It's made a ton of games into somewhat of a coin flip, and they've been getting a ton of credit in the market. I'm sure there's someone out there that's faded this team a lot the last 2 months, and you'd be doing really good, I'm sure, because like these kinds of minus 190 prices seems like it's every single night, and then you get out there in the games, it feels like it's 2-1 or 3-1, and Markstrom's got to steal it. So I feel like it's a pretty great price for a game, which should be pretty competitive.
Yeah, and speaking of that, just in terms of the minus 190 price tag, New Jersey's average odds at home this season are around minus 177. So this is a little bit strange to see them priced this high in this game with the injuries that they have, and as well as the goaltending situation and just their current form in general. And while the Flyers haven't been a great underdog bet this season or a great bet at all, really. They have been, not so bad as a road underdog, just down 2 units this season. If you had bet 1 unit on Flyers to win every game in which they were an underdog on the road, but the Devils actually are I believe, the 3rd least profitable team as far as home favorites go this season. So, pretty mediocre home record, just. I think there's enough here to back this Flyers team tonight. So consensus play between me and Nick here. Flyers, let's say plus 155 or better at this point. There's no reason to take worse than that, considering it's pretty widely available.
Yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
To backtrack quick, I was meant to slide this in there. I think it's really exciting to see Doughty come back, but it is pretty shocking to see that they're probably going to scratch Clark, because Clark was a huge reason that they were able to get by as well as they did without Doughty in the lineup. So not trying to say Doughty's better than Clark, but I would have definitely not thought he'd be one of the ones who ends up sitting with how things have gone.
Yeah, and I just want to circle back. You were at the Capitals game on Tuesday. Win for your Caps over the Flames. Unfortunately, Ovechkin did not score a goal, and he's gone a little bit cold as of late. But the Caps, one thing that stands out to me about this Washington team is that they've got the easiest remaining schedule. Now, this is based on Bet365's regular season point total. So I take the average of the home and road games for each team, and I break it down like that. But the Caps and the Winnipeg Jets, the 2 best teams in the NHL by points percentage, are saddled with the easiest remaining schedule. So that's bad news for the rest of the league. And I just wanted to point that out there really quickly, because I think it is something that's important as people look for these two teams, maybe to fall off. Not so much Winnipeg, but maybe more so Washington. I think there's a good case to be made on why the Capitals will not fall off over these next 30 odd games or so. But that's good news for you because they should get I don't think there's going to be an easy matchup in the Eastern Conference playoffs this season, but the Caps will in all likelihood get the 8th seed, and that's good for them.
Yeah, hopefully. And my futures really needs it because I think my futures takes are pretty great this year, but if there's one thing that has worked out really well for me, it's been believing in the Caps from the get-go because they're 40-1 to win the division. Carberry was 25 to win Coach of the Year. I thought those were both great bets. At this point, I'm really banking on getting both of them. So yeah, hopefully they get there. It does seem like the Caps are becoming a little too reliant on Thompson at times, but they have enough going in their favor. Hopefully the goal scoring can kind of snap out of this little slump a little bit because probably not going to win games at this kind of a rate, just counting on your goaltender every night.
Yeah, and it's also good for Alex Ovechkin. Hopefully he'll be able to feast on some weaker opponents down the stretch and maybe be in a position where he can get that empty net goal on most nights. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was rattled last night. I put a fairly irrational bet on Ovechkin to get the last goal prior to the game because I did think the Caps would probably win a fairly close game and that they'd probably try and get him that empty netter. Once Protas made it 3-1, I was like, all right, sweet, here we go. 2 minutes to try, and they're going to try as hard as they can to get him the empty net. And then unfortunately, Wilson took a penalty, so they had to put the PK unit out there and couldn't cheat to get over his goal. So, yeah,
I like
kind of ruined.
I like that angle, and I think you could probably use that in quite a few games down the stretch here. So
it was 10-1 last night for the Caps to win and him to get the last goal, which I thought was in that spot a solid look. I felt pretty decent about the Caps' chances. So, yeah.
The poor old Chicago Blackhawks, they've got the toughest remaining schedule, an average opponent strength of 93 points. Detroit is next with 92.8 points as far as their strength of schedule. And the Vancouver Canucks, 92.1 points. So not good for their playoff chances. They're in action tonight versus the Nashville Predators, who actually have the 4th easiest remaining schedule. Not that it's probably going to matter for Nashville because they've dug themselves such a big hole here. But I actually like the Predators tonight, and you can still get them at Bet365 at -140, which I think is pretty much the best price in market. I locked it in a little bit earlier this morning. It does look like it is going to be UC Saros in goal tonight. So that's good. Thatcher Demko likely for the Canucks. So I think that's good for me as well. I mean, this Nashville team has been on fire offensively as of late. No team has scored more goals per 60 minutes than Nashville dating back to December 15th. And the Predators also have the best expected goals percentage in all situations in the NHL during that stretch. They still rank among the bottom 10 teams in goals against, though. But the Canucks aren't far off that mark either. I think they're the 12th worst team over the last month, and they haven't been scoring nearly as much. Not to mention all the drama surrounding this team, and now there are even rumors that Quinn Hughes might not want to sign an extension. I don't know how real those reports are, but I wouldn't blame him. Why would he? I mean, he's got 2 years left on his deal, and Jim Rutherford has been, floating the idea that there might be a rebuild here. And if that's the case, I wouldn't want to stick around if I'm Quinn Hughes, and I don't think the Canucks will keep him anyways if that's the case. So, I mean, I haven't bet on the Predators much this season, especially not as favorites, and I should be pretty thankful for that because they have been the worst money line bet in the NHL year to date. But I think it's a good bet to test good spot to test the waters here. The Canucks ranked 25th in expected goal differential and 31st in goal differential per 60 minutes over the last month. And as I mentioned, Nashville's looking pretty good, all things considered. So if we can get a good goaltending performance from UC Saros, I think -140 is a pretty good price to back this Predators team, who has a 2-day rest advantage. They're coming back off a 3-day break. And so far this season, teams have won, or home teams that have more rest than the road team have won approximately 60% of the time. So you've got to factor that in as well, which I'm sure, a lot of people are, but the sports books haven't really done a good job of factoring that in this season based on the implied odds in those games. So I like Nashville at -140. That's my final bet for this 5-game slate here. But I believe you like something in the Utah-Pittsburgh game. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do. And I'm actually really excited to see that Predators-Canucks game. And I think on the Hughes thing, some of the reports out of Vancouver are insane. Like people questioning his leadership. I don't understand what these people expect him to do with Miller and Peterson. Like go in the, what do you do? They're grown adults. If they're not going to get it together and go out there and play, I don't know what he can do. He's leading by example about as best he possibly can. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see if Vancouver can finally get a 3-game win streak here. But I like your angle. I think the Preds have looked really good. And I kind of actually was interested in Forsberg to get 2 points at +170 as well. He has been incredible lately, and that top line's been really good. Like you said, the Canucks haven't defended great, and Demko's been pretty bad. So I think that's I like your look and wouldn't hate backing Forsberg in some capacity. But the last bet I have, I like Logan Cooley and Clayton Keller each to get a point, which was at, I believe, minus. Still at even money. So I think that's a good bet. We've been people have been putting a lot of Logan Cooley clips together lately, and just everyone's kind of been on how good he's been playing. He has been pointless over the last 3 games, but I still think his play has really stood out. Keller, meanwhile, has got a single point in 9 out of 10. And I just feel like this is a good spot to pick on that line. It has been unreal lately. And the two correlate, both playing top line, top power play, take on a Penguins team that is really not defended very well at all season long. So I think even money, given the chance that each of them put up a point, is a good number. I wouldn't hate playing the whole line with Schmaltz to get a point too, or Keller to get 2 points, kind of however you want to play it. But I feel like that line has looked really good. I thought they were excellent versus Ottawa on Sunday in what was a tough luck loss for the hockey club, but just have to laugh trying to say that the hockey club, seriously. It sounds just so awkward however you phrase it. But yeah, I think that line's going to have a good night for sure.
And it sounds like might have a little bit of trouble getting the name that they want as well. And so I think they're in some disputes over trademarks and whatnot. So we'll see. But yeah, they got to. I like the Utah Hockey Club. I do. I think it's a good look. I like the name, but to say it, to talk about it,
it's weird. And yeah, I agree. I don't completely hate it. Like I could see it being a thing. It's different, and I do think their jerseys are great, so they have that going in their favor. But yeah, we'll see what goes on next year. And I think Utah in general is a really interesting team in the back half of the year. Apparently, they might try to add still, which I don't think would be that insane with all their prospects and if they get healthy. So yeah, this is a really big game for them because I do feel like there's still some belief around the team and the organization. I don't think they've quit at all. I think they can still steal a wild card berth. So yeah, they need this one versus Pittsburgh.
Yeah, good sign for Utah too. It doesn't look like he's going to be returning tomorrow, but Dylan Gunther practiced today in a non-contact jersey, so that's a step in the right direction for the Utah Hockey Club. But yeah, I mean, if the NHL was more like the EPL, where it was that was the norm, and they didn't really emphasize the team name, like the animals and whatever else. And just use mascots, it would be a little more I guess digestible, but yeah, it's so different, and it's so different than everything else that it just doesn't really fit, especially when you're trying to write an article and you just constantly have to use Utah all the time or talk about it. It's kind of annoying. So I'll be glad when they bring in a real name for the team. But as far as Wednesday goes, I guess that's it. You want to look ahead to Thursday a little bit. There's one game that I'm interested in, but I am not quite sure I'm ready to pull the trigger here because while I would think that they would start Connor Hellebuyck tomorrow in Boston, you just don't know, right? They've got a few games here. They're on the road. They're going to play Washington on the weekend, yeah, I'm just a little bit nervous that they might turn to Eric Comrie just because the Bruins have been such a punching bag and not very good offensively. They don't generate a ton of shots, so I mean it might be a good spot to start Eric Comrie after he got off the snide with that win over the Flames there. But If I had any inkling that it would be Hellebuck tomorrow, I'd be locking the Jets in right now because I think it's a great price if Hellebuck is in. The Winnipeg Jets around the minus 140 range. I think FanDuel had them up at minus 138. I believe, and yeah, that's I think a really good price. We talked about it yesterday. It's just Hellebuck's almost like an auto bet right now. I don't want to say that regardless of price, but when you think the price is good, you might as well just go with it because he hasn't lost much this season.
Yeah, I mean, as a general rule, minus 130 is pretty short. Like, you really don't have to dive into it much more than that. You could, I mean, arguably, I'm sure if you ran it playing even the absolute top teams league, he'd be profitable at minus 130 the last 2 years. So I definitely see you there, especially if the Bruins don't get some of those guys back on the blue line. But yeah, the bet I like.
I'm gonna chance it, and I'm gonna lock it in right now.
I don't
Minus
think it's
132 at Pinnacle, and hopefully, even if Eric Comrie starts and I get a terrible line on this game, they still find a way to win because the Bruins have been pretty awful. They are gonna get Charlie McAvoy back tomorrow, probably, maybe Hampus Lindholm. I don't know yet, but yeah, that's not gonna help their offense a whole lot because McAvoy is deathly afraid of shooting the puck on most nights, it seems. So
yeah, and Comrie hasn't been like, he's got a 905 save percentage. It's kind of tough for him that he's probably racked up as many losses as he has, and especially the gap between him and Hellebuck probably makes him feel even worse. But it's not like he's been like just some goalie that should be a pure fade. I think it's really just obviously comes down to how big the gap between him and Hellebuck is. But yeah, I like the Sens. They're out there at minus 105 right now on DraftKings is the best I'm seeing. They're playing the Capitals. I think it's a good spot. Caps are at the tail end of a long road trip here that's featured a lot of travel. I feel like they gave it more or less their best shot versus the Capitals. They knew that, or versus the Flames. They knew that was a really big game with Thompson returning home. And he was the first star for a reason. I feel like the rest outside of him, the team looked pretty middling. The usual suspects were pretty good. Dubois had that big goal. Protas was excellent and put the game away. But I feel like you look at the rest of the team, and at even strength, it does not look great. Fourth line's been a lot worse than it was earlier on in the year. The Ovechkin-Strome duo hasn't been generating anything. So I think it's a pretty good spot. The Sens have been quite good lately. They'll have a big rest advantage. So even as good as the Caps have been, it might seem like maybe you'd be arguing that they deserve to be a bigger favorite when it's almost a pick 'em. But I actually think the Sens deserve to be more favored, and wouldn't be surprised to see them end up as actually closer to minus 120 by puck drop, because I think people are probably going to piece together this spot that the Caps really haven't been all that good lately. So I think it's a pretty good time to buy on the Sens, who've quietly been in a pretty damn good run of play. It's crazy. They're up to third in the Atlantic Division right now.
Yeah, and like you said, Ottawa coming off a 3-day break, so 2-day rest advantage for the Sens. The other team with a big rest advantage tomorrow is the Columbus Blue Jackets. They're coming off a 4-day break. They're going to be playing Vegas on 1 day's rest, so that'll be interesting to see where that one goes overnight. I'm not really interested in the price right now. I think Vegas is a good enough team to warrant their current odds, but we'll see if Columbus climbs up there. I could see myself back in the Blue Jackets, maybe at a smaller bet.
What about the Wings?
Thursday.
You might have to be getting tempted. They're plus 235 right now.
Yeah, that's getting there, but man, I was actually getting a head start on my Oilers Nation game preview for that game, and as good as the Wings have been under Todd McLellan, they're 11-4-1. They won 3 in a row, looking for their 4th win in a row. They've improved their shot share under McLellan, but expected goals and goal differential still pretty bad, still among the worst in the league, and at even strength. And they're really kind of being carried by their power play right now, which is the best in the league since McLellan took over, 37.7%, if I recall correctly. And they're still pretty horrible on the penalty kill. They're better. They rank 31st on the kill under Derek Lalonde, and since McLellan took over, they're up to I think 24th. But yeah, just I'm not quite sure about that one, but it is starting to get tempting for sure.
Yeah, and I guess I could end up diving into this on tomorrow's, but I bet DeBrincat had to go under a point versus the Kings, and I knew the big sweat would be the power plays. because he's on the second line right now with Andrew Kopp and Bergeron, and I felt like that line was not going to fare well in that game. They had a 32% expected goal share, only had 5 shots combined. I felt like they really didn't get anything significant, and that was at plus 125. And if it's the same line versus Oilers tomorrow, I might be pretty tempted. The Brinkat got a point on an extended 5-on-3, and I feel like it was a bit of a tough beat because the rest of the game he did very little and that line did not look good. So I think that could be a decent shot. Chances are they're not going to end up with a 2-minute 5-on-3 in the Oilers game. And I feel like that power play has been unreal, but I don't think he's personally been that good. And he's on a line that lacks offensive upside right now. So that could be a good bet to revisit tomorrow.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting. I haven't looked up what's going on with Stuart Skinner right now. I know his wife was expecting a child. I'm not sure if that happened or not. So I should double check on that. But maybe he's running a little bit low on sleep heading into this one. So we'll see about that. But I definitely wouldn't be betting against Lucas Raymond to get a point because he's
that
been
line's
great.
been great.
Yeah, him and Dylan Larkin.
And Casper.
Yeah, Raymond has 23 points in 16 games under McClellan, 56 points in 50 games this season, leading the team. He's the only player on the season that's playing at a point per game pace, but Dylan Larkin isn't far behind. He's got 9 goals and 21 points in 16 games under McClellan. And Patrick Kane, who practiced today, has played 13 games under McClellan. He has 16 points. So those 3 players are doing really well under the new head coach. And I think it's going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be a little bit of an exciting one. And yeah, we'll wait till tomorrow I'll wait till tomorrow to lock something in on the
I will as well.
and the
Oilers. This is just another thing of me being a schmuck, but I thought the other night that Casper to get a point looked like a pretty good bet with him going up to the top line. I've been high on him. I was excited to see him get up to the top line, and he's been great. I haven't cashed in on it, but he's been excellent. I feel like he kind of earned that role. So I don't know if we'll see him get off that line anytime soon, because it does give the Red Wings a good option to balance the scoring around a little bit. So yeah, maybe we'll be talking about that play tomorrow too.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for another great show, Nick. My bets for today, as I mentioned, I've got the Nashville Predators on the money line at minus 140. I've got William Nylander to go over 3.5 shots at plus 105. And we've got the Flyers at plus 155 or better. Nick's also on the Flyers money line. What else are you on? You want to recap really quick, Nick, before we get out of here?
Yeah, I like the Leafs at minus 165, Cooley and Keller each to get a point at even money, the Flyers money line. And then tomorrow, I like the Sens to minus 120, but I'm assuming everyone should be able to get a better price than that at some point today, because that is a worse number than any of the books are currently at.
Yeah, and I'm taking a gamble on the Winnipeg Jets tomorrow against my Boston Bruins, as much as I hate to say that, but man, I don't want to really take ownership of this team right now because they are bad. So we'll be back on Thursday to break down. All right.
Yeah, question from the chat for Nick. He's saying if Patrick Kane does in fact come back tomorrow, are you still feeling that under 0.5 points for DeBrincat, or does that kind of move the needle for you?
No, yeah, that's a good question. If Kane returned, then I wouldn't play it. If it was just Tarasenko returning and the number was still plus 125, I would live with it. But it's possible the whole second line is back. So it's a good question. Good question. Probably something worth revisiting tomorrow.
Something else we'll have to visit tomorrow, not revisit, but visit, is Jordan Smaltz saying that he'd potentially be looking to move pending RFA Evan Bouchard at the trade deadline if he's Stan Bowman. So that one certainly fired up Oilers Nation on Twitter yesterday. Maybe we'll get into that and share our thoughts on if the Oilers should move on from Evan Bouchard before the trade deadline.
Sell him while he's at his worst, right? That's what all the smart people do.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Thanks, Nick. Great show today. We will be back on Thursday. Big slate on Thursday. We've got a busy weekend coming up in the NHL, but Thursday is actually the busiest day of the week with 10 games on tap. I think there's 8 games on Saturday and 8 games on Sunday. Obviously, the NHL taking full advantage of the fact that there is no NFL NFL football outside of the Pro Bowl, which nobody cares about. So we're going to be back to break all that down on Thursday. Until then, good luck with your bets and gamble responsibly.